so much for having patience. Yay.
Yay!
I love that you have the watercolors behind you and I can see the sheep and I can see the cat. But
Yes.
is there a story behind the cat?
So yes and no. So the cat, obviously knitters have favorite animals that are kind of animal companions. And I've had a cat charm in my shop for a long time, and people love the cat. They, knitters love their cats. And I chose to paint a mischievous little kitten because we had a kitten for, well, he's not so little anymore. He's almost a year old, but he still like digs in my bins and pulls out my yarn, and periodically I'll be like, but I chose the orange stripe, the orange tabby, not because my current kitten is an orange tabby, but because my sweet Iro was an orange tabby, and he passed away last year, and so I wanted to make sure that the kitten that I had was an orange tabby.
Yes. Oh, well, thank you for sharing the story. I'll go ahead and introduce you. This is Dawn Prickett with us. And so for everyone on my channel, Dawn has her own YouTube channel, and I just stumbled across it like it was only a couple months ago when it was randomly in Christmas time, and I'm searching for videos about yarny business and just different things on YouTube. And Dawn has an entire playlist on things that people interested in the business side of it could look at. And not only that, but I realized Dawn absolutely, well, from your videos, she absolutely knows what she's doing. So in the area of business, and there's a ton of videos as well about knitting and different knitting techniques and things that are important in knitting. There's just a whole variety of things. And I was immediately like, yes, this is amazing. So for all my viewers watching this video, definitely go check Dawn out at Twice Sheared Sheep, but it's Dawn Prickett at YouTube. So there's two different things, and Dawn can obviously share with you how to find her on social, and if you haven't already. And I love your story, by the way. That's one of the things that when you do your videos and you tell the story of the unraveling of the sweaters that you found, and that, can you just tell it? Is that okay? Can you just tell this story?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I know that everybody comes to the fiber arts from different spaces. That I learned to knit as a young adult at 18 or whatever. An ex-boyfriend's mom taught me to knit. I learned to crochet when I was like 12. But I didn't pick it up again until I was married and had young children. And actually it was a way to, I had been really, really big into MMO role-playing games. And I spent way too much time on the computer and realized it was not good for my psyche, for myself, for my family. I think I have an addictive personality. And so I took up knitting again. I had two little kids. My teenage daughter, who is 16, who actually, no, she just turned 17, was a baby at the time. And I was a stay-at-home mom, and obviously I didn't have a lot of money. My husband was working, but as a stay-at-home mom of two little kids, I didn't have a lot of money for yarn, and the only yarn that I'd ever knit with was from a big box store, from Michael's or from Hobby Lobby or something like that. I'd only actually knit with acrylic until I got into these Yahoo groups, which was, pre-Ravelry, pre-YouTube, pre any of this. And everybody was crazy about sock yarn, and it was wool. And I'm like, isn't wool itchy? Why are you wanting to knit with wool? This, it was baffling to me. And it was right about the time that Socks That Rock first came out, that the hand-dyed yarn movement began. And I had made a comment, and they're like, oh, but our wool is so soft, you'll never believe it. And they sent me a skein of yarn in the mail. Like, free, just legit. I will always love this company because of this. And they sent me this skein of sock yarn, and it was the most gorgeous, wonderful thing I'd ever knit with. And from that point, I never wanted to go back to acrylic from the craft store, but I couldn't afford to buy lots of wonderful wool yarn. And so I was perusing the internet one time and I found a blog post about how to unravel sweaters for thrift store sweaters for the yarn. And I thought, well, that's great. I can get wool yarn. And even though they don't have it at Hobby Lobby or, you know, things like this. And so I went to the thrift store and I bought like 4 or 5 sweaters. I think I bought a cotton sweater and I bought one that was like a rayon blend. It looked like silk. It was shiny and it was gorgeous. And I bought a couple of wool sweaters. Didn't know anything, you know, other than this one YouTube, or it wasn't even YouTube, it was a blog post on how to unravel sweaters. And so I unraveled my first one, which, you know, you snip a little piece of the seam and you unzip it, but I didn't do it right, I don't think. And I didn't have a Swift or a skein winder. So I had a baby gate because obviously 2 little children. I had a baby gate and I set the crank at exactly like, it ended up being a yard. So like 3 feet or something like that. And with my arm, you know, wrapping around the outside of the baby gate to get the hank, my shoulder was sore. It was a massive undertaking. And then I had this big fat skein. I mean, just this big around, you know, from the sweater winding all into one hank. And I thought, okay, great. I've got yarn now. So I went to my bathroom and I put it in the sink with, I didn't even have wool wash, so hair shampoo, put it in the sink with hair shampoo, and you had to rinse it because it was hair shampoo. And yeah, and went to squeeze out the water, sort of as best as I could, and then took just a clothes hanger and hung it on the towel rack. And 24 hours later, it's still dripping on the floor in the bathroom because obviously I didn't get enough water out of it. And obviously it was too big and my shoulder hurt and it took forever. And there was dust flying in the air when I was unraveling. And I thought, this is ridiculous. And of course, the first one that I did was the rayon yarn that looked like silk. And instead of being one thick ply, it was multiple little strands. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is stupid. I'm never doing this again. But about a week later, I was looking at that pile of sweaters over there and I'm like, well, I think I know a little bit better what to do. And so, you know, I picked up another sweater and I was better about it the second time and then the third time. And that eventually I had unraveled so many sweaters that it was more yarn than I personally could knit. And so I saw that there were people who were selling this on eBay. And I thought, well, I could sell yarn on eBay. And so I listed a whole sweater's lot worth of yarn on eBay and it sold. And that was like my very first bug of, oh crap, I could have a business. This is amazing. And, you know, even though I hated unraveling that first sweater, I have unraveled thousands of sweaters by this point. And I found myself, you know, you're standing behind somebody at the checkout and they're wearing this gorgeous sweater and I'm like picking apart the seams mentally and how is this constructed? And you know, we started on eBay selling whole sweater lots worth auction wise, and people would bid it way up or people would buy it just flat, and then to kind of standardize things, and we moved over to Etsy when Etsy became a thing. And then in 2016, we built our own website and we had our own website. And eventually, you know, the way that all fiber arts goes is like a rabbit hole, that you start with one thing and you're like, oh, I think I'll unravel a sweater, you know, I want some wool yarn. And then pretty soon you learn how to spin and you've got a spinning wheel, and pretty soon you've got like 500 knitting needles, and pretty soon you learn how to make stitch markers.
Yes.
And it all just kind of follows. And I think that business is that same way, that it becomes kind of a rabbit hole, and you learn how to make the thing, then you learn how to take pretty pictures, then you learn how to build a website, then you learn how to run ads, and pretty soon you're like, I'm building an empire over here.
Yes. So I love that story, and it makes me laugh because I think it fits so many other yarnies, so many fiber artists out there, so many people. We get started on something and it's that one thing, and then we're gone. And that's, it's this beautiful, beautiful thing. And you were able to build and build, and your skills, you're describing the building of the skills and the building of the skills, and it's through the course of time. And that's something, I don't know if you've done this, but sometimes I find impatience pops up, or wanting to be someplace perhaps that maybe our skills are not there yet, or we haven't put the time in, or the learning in, or the practice in. But eventually when we do, we build and we keep growing, and our businesses keep growing. So I think it's you could, yeah.
I was going to say, I think it's super easy to compare your beginning to somebody else's middle or somebody else's end.
Yes.
You know, because you're starting out, and particularly since we are artists at heart, you know, you have this grand vision, and you know where you want to be, and you have this idea and all these things, and you can see it so clearly, but you're not quite sure how to get there yet. And I think that in any form of art form, you know, when I started watercolor, it was really easy to look at everybody else's paintings and be like, well, mine looks like a 2-year-old did this, you know. Or when you first start out knitting, or, you know, or you spin your first yarn and you're like, well, that was a complete waste of fiber. Because but everything is that way, that it just takes some repetitions, and you want to know everything right at the start, but sometimes you don't know until you've done something. When you take that leap of faith and you start doing it, like you launch your first product, and you learn things along the way, and people will tell you things, and it doesn't make any sense until you have done it yourself, and you're like, that's what that meant.
So yeah, you have spoken in some of your videos. You had a program or a coach, Renee, I believe, and
yes,
I've watched some of her videos, because obviously I watched your video and I was like, oh, I got to check this out now. So would you mind sharing a little bit about how having her in your life, and how that process helped you, and where you are now?
So I think that particularly as fiber artists, or as artists in general, we have a tendency to say, you know what, I can do everything myself, because you look at the world like, I can make that. You know, I could go buy supplies at Hobby Lobby. I could make that. And so it's really easy to look at business the same way, and to say, well, I can reverse engineer what they did there. You know, that I joined Renee Christine's program. It's called Handmade Titan University. Back then it was called Rich Mom Business. I joined it in 2016, and it was the first time I had ever spent money on business training for myself. And the class is rather expensive for a beginning, you know, person. I think it was $1,000 at the time on a payment plan, you know. And I remember talking to my husband and being panicky and being like, can I actually invest this kind of money, and is it going to do anything for me? And the program was phenomenal and was perfect for exactly where I was at, because it teaches you how to properly brand a business. That I don't know if I have any of my old branding still on the YouTube channel, but you know, my logo right now is a purple heart, or a purple circle, and it has TSS with, you know, a heart in it. Back in the day, it was a sheep with a sweater, and you know, the sweater is being unraveled into a ball of yarn, and it was just a little hand-drawn sheep. And before that, it was a sheep that I had done in Microsoft Paint. if you can picture this in like squares and circles. And but it teaches how to properly brand your business. It teaches how to create a collection of cohesive things and launch it together. It teaches you how to build an email list and how to consistently capture that and how to market to that email list every single week. And that has been absolutely key to how I built my business. But after I had followed Renee for a couple of years, that you start to build a little bit of confidence in your ability, that, you know, the idea of, oh, if I follow a training and I learn it, then my business grows and I make more money. And I have since gathered several other coaches that I follow and adore and love. And I really think that when you take that leap to begin to follow a coach, to begin to follow somebody who's been where you're at, that it makes such a huge difference. It's really easy to, you know, like I said, it's really easy to say, oh, I can reverse engineer everything. I can YouTube everything.
Yes.
But what you get from a paid program is so much more than what you can get from YouTube. Even as generous as Renee is, or as I try to be in, and as honest as I try to be in sharing what I do and in my journey, and all of the, you can learn how to knit anything on YouTube. Yeah.
Awesome. So it was you had the initial jump, and yet there's a lot of anxiety, but through following and actually learning the process and going through, it got to the point where you were able to further jump and to further grow, to further, and it doesn't sound like a lot of stagnation in there. It doesn't sound like a lot of time was spent down, not a lot of downtime.
Well, it sounds that way, but it doesn't necessarily feel that way at the time. So, you know, I started following Renee Christine in 2016, and I learned how to do everything properly. And then she offered her architect course, Ultimate Architect, which is her website building course. And so I took that in the fall of 2016 and built my website. But, you know, it's just kind of out there and in the ether. And I'm like, well, my email list knows to come here, but her program doesn't talk a lot about how to get new people into your world.
Yes.
How to, you know, so it talks about branding and about marketing to your audience and all of these things. But the problem then became of how do I get new people in? And the internet is full of people who are like, you know, oh, you can take a Pinterest course, you can take a social media course, you can take an Instagram course, you can take a YouTube course. I took my next coach that I followed. Her name is Courtney Foster Donahue. And I took a class on Facebook ads and in general. And every Facebook ad course that I've ever seen out there is geared mostly towards content creators. Courtney then went on to her main course right now. I don't even think she offers her Facebook course anymore. Her main course is on building a course and teaching other people how to build a course. And it's called The Course. And, but I found it frustrating that, you know, even her Facebook course was geared towards people who are teaching online or content creators or bloggers or things like this. There isn't a lot of content for maker businesses like us, for fiber artists or artists in general, or product businesses, because we have to do things differently. And so after I took her Facebook class, you know, I learned how to adapt that to my product business. And she then introduced me to Todd Herman, who is he's a mindset coach. And he works with pro athletes and with giant businesses. And here I am, this little tiny fiber product business in this class with this big coach, and all of the other businesses are like, I'm a coach, I'm a high powered CEO, my company makes, you know, $500,000 or $5 million. And I'm like,
I like yarn.
That honestly, you know, I have a YouTube video that says, you know, how I made $300,000 in my business. But if you watch the video, it took me years to cumulatively make $300,000.
Yes.
Last year was the first year that I actually broke $100,000 in a single year, which has been a goal for a very long time.
That's absolutely awesome.
But, you know, and not only did we do $100,000 last year, we did over $200,000 last year.
Wow.
And
Wow.
these are the differences that as you start to build your skills and you start to begin to see that there are possibilities that you didn't even know existed. And that's when I think that a really good coach is good, is because they can help you see, you know what on earth is stopping you from being able to turn your little fiber business into something amazing.
I love
when you live in this.
Yes, that what is stopping? Because I think there's a lot of people who watch my channel, who watch the Razzle Dazzle Rabbitry and Yarns channel, who want. They are a lot of people are moms. A lot of people want to have their own fiber arts business, and whether it's obviously I do a lot with Angora Rabbits and hand spinning yarn and knitting and crocheting, but there's a lot of people who there's you know, obviously there's so much going on in the world, and there's a need. There's always a need for what's genuine. There's always a need to connect. There's always a need for what's authentic and real, and to have meaning and to have purpose. And so many people, especially I think if they have been perhaps in isolation due to situations of COVID, like it puts this time to reflect. And there's a lot of people who want more, and that idea of I could have a little yarny business. I like that. But then what I like more is, well, why can't I have more than just a little business or a little yarny business? Because so often when we think of yarn, I don't often hear a lot of people say, well, this is a six-figure yarny business, or this is a six-figure maker business. There's really what might the right word be? A lack of communication. There's a lack of videos out there. There's a lack geared towards a bigger dream, instead of just making enough to pay for your yarn, or making enough to pay for your hobby, making enough just to pay for your rabbits, whatever it is. So not many people, which is why I was drawn to you, is that you say, you know, you had the intellect to say, let's do a program, let's have a coach, let's seek out more than just what's inside.
Well, and I heard it said once that your business cannot grow faster than you do personally. And I think that is so very, very true, because we all start out where we're at. You know, you're learning new things, you have different wants, you have different needs, and that's okay. You know, the whole point of having a business, you know, first of all, is that you can help support your family, which I am huge on. I mean, I have been a stay-at-home mother of 5 children through their whole lives. And this has been because I have a business. A huge proponent of it. Everybody should have a business. I think it's wonderful. But also that you don't want that business to create a life that you hate. You want that business to create a life that you love. And I think so many artists, you get pushed to, you know, you create something beautiful and then to monetize that, and then you follow somebody's plan, and that creates a world where you're like, why am I living in this world? You know, I've just created the worst job possible for myself.
Yes.
But at the same time, everybody talks about $100,000 is like the ceiling, is like, this is the goal, that, you know, just, and nobody ever talks about anything that is beyond that.
Yes.
And I think that that's a disservice to maker businesses, because we can absolutely have all of that. You know, the idea that we think about we think about ourselves as such small little potatoes, but everything started out as small little potatoes. I'm from Idaho. I currently live in Idaho, and I made that comment before. I always feel like I'm such small potatoes, and they looked at me. They're like, "We're going to make you a great big Idaho potato."
Oh my God! I'm going to turn my phone off. I'm sorry. Excuse me. One moment. My alarm's going off. I have it set so that I have to pick up the kids from school because I run around with the kids, but obviously today's Saturday.
It's Saturday.
I never adjusted that, you know, let's just go and pick up the kids. But anyways, yes.
We'll just do it every day.
Right. So the ability to look at a situation and to say more than just the ceiling, more than just this number, more than just that. And like I said, I think that's rare, and I don't hear a lot of that. For example, last year I didn't attend any craft fairs or fiber festivals or anything due to COVID, but it was the year before that I was attending quite a bit, and there was a lot of struggle, and I hear a lot of struggle from vendors. And it was an alpaca show, and a lot of people with their businesses, you know, it was almost like there was that that limit placed on by who other than just the person. And so
yeah,
it's I think it's very important to discuss that. So
see, and that absolutely breaks my heart, you know, that, and I know that some of it is, you know, particularly we all come at things from with different skill sets and different knowledge bases. I've met a lot of fiber people who really understand how to take care of the animals and how good husbandry and how to manage a farm and all of that. But the idea of taking that into the online space is like taking it to another planet.
Yes.
Or, you know, the idea of raising sheep and you sell your sheep to the mill or to the, you know, to all of these things. And it kind of breaks my heart because I would love to see a farmer who can raise gorgeous fleeces, you know, and have an email list of people who are following all along, know all of their alpacas' names and are lined up to be able to buy those fleeces on shearing day. And they're all sold and they're all accounted for to individual people who are going to cherish that.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what the internet gives us, but not everybody can see that or understand how to get from here to here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So when I'm watching your videos, that's one of the biggest, there's so many things, but that's one of the things that, you know, it really jumps out and it really strikes me. And that's different about your videos, that, you know, nobody else puts that out there, which is why it's like, I want people to check out your channel. I want my viewers to go look at these videos, go see. But the products that you offer now, so you have digital patterns, right? You can you tell me about your products, and would you be able to talk about just how you went from the unraveling of the sweaters to now, to what you offer now?
So again, it's kind of an evolutionary process that I have serial obsessions and I like to try new things. But I realized, you know, in business that contrary to my artist heart, you have to pay attention to what your customers actually want and not necessarily all the beautiful things that you want to make. So I do sell digital patterns. I'm not, I wouldn't consider myself a major, you know, a product or a pattern designer because I don't sell a lot of patterns. I don't actually market a lot of patterns. And because I like to make patterns for the things that I like to make, and that's not necessarily the things that people like to buy. I had a product collection a couple summers ago. It was called the Candyland collection. And I designed a knitted game board. It's a blanket and it's like Candyland. And I loved every minute of designing it. It was an intellectual just puzzle of how can I piece these things together and how can I make this happen. And I had these cute little play pieces and everything. And I loved designing that. I knew that my audience would not necessarily buy it just because I know my audience so well. And it's true that, you know, I've sold maybe a couple of copies of that pattern, but I loved designing it. But as a business, I need to be able to sell the things that I know that people are going to buy and that they're going to enjoy, and as well as the things that I feel good making. And so we transitioned from doing recycled yarn, which I do love recycled yarn, but there was always this feeling of, I love the idea that it's good for the environment. I love the idea that I'm rescuing the fiber. I love all of that. But the yarn itself was never really my favorite to knit with. And it was, I felt almost disingenuous saying, you know, oh, this is the best yarn on the planet, because it's not really. It was designed, you know, when it was created, it was designed to be handled by knitting machines. And so the yarn is very flat. It's not as round, which is what hand knitters like, what I like. And I also found that the more volume that I was doing, the more that I was selling, I one, physically could not keep up with it, but I also couldn't reliably reproduce the same thing. That when you unravel a sweater, you only have so much yarn. And once that dye lot sells out, you don't have any more of it, even if there was demand for it. And it was very frustrating as a business, because I would design a beautiful pattern to go with this yarn and it would sell out immediately, and then I couldn't offer it again. And I think that that's a disservice to me as a business, and it's a disservice to all of my fans and all of my customers, because I couldn't keep giving them the things that they wanted. And so we did discontinue our recycled yarns, and we have shifted everything over to our knitting tools, which are our row counters.
Yes, let's see
like
that.
This.
Yes.
So our row counters, which is a chain of loops with numbers on it it's like a fancy stitch marker. So you put it on your needles, and as you're knitting along, when you come back to it, you just go to the next number of the chain and it keeps track of all of your rows, as opposed to the little clicker thing that you have to remember to click it, or the little hashtags on the piece of paper to remember, did I mark that? Did I not mark that? If I do it in pen and I have to rip out rows, am I going to know where I was at? Or highlighting your lace chart and you're like, oh crap, I had to rip out 5 rows and now they're all highlighted. And then we sell stitch markers, which are our own personal designs.
Those are beautiful.
And they are our mainstays of our business. And we've offered different things and tried out different things, but the biggest thing is that it has to be something that I can reproduce reliably and regularly so that we can scale.
Yes.
Not only so that we can serve more customers so that they can have pretty things, but also so that the business can scale. Yes. And it has to be something that I can teach somebody else how to make. We currently have 5 assistants in our shop. And I realized this last year, I'd honestly avoided hiring assistants for years and years and years. I tried lots of different avenues of how can I make this business bigger without hiring anybody, because I have no desire to be a boss. I have no desire. But then I realized once I hired an assistant that my capacity expanded so much more. The vision of what we could become expanded so much more. And this past fall, I realized when I hired another assistant, I think she was number 4, that almost every single one of the women that I had hired had told me that they had been praying for an opportunity like this. And the idea that my business can not only serve my customers, but that it can be the means to be an answer to somebody else's prayer, yes, was huge for me. The idea that this business not only supports my family, but it can help support other people's families was huge for me. And so when I continue to grow, that is what I think about, is if I can continue to grow this business, not only can I serve the knitting community and make beautiful things that make their lives better, but that I can make my employees' lives better. I can make other stay-at-home moms, I can have an opportunity for them to work at home with their babies. Because not everybody wants to start a business. I realized this as an entrepreneur, it kind of blew my mind. I'm like, wait, you don't want to start a business? What? But the idea that this thing that we're creating, you know, can then help other people and help them feed their families is huge. And that's part of the reason why I have my YouTube channel, is because I want to see people be able to feed their families. I want people to be able to see and create their beautiful vision out in the world. I want you to be able to, you know, sell your fiber and see people use it and all of that. That's what we're after here.
Right. It's more, right? It's more than
it's
just
more. Yeah.
I think,
but I didn't start out there. You know, you talked about that if you had asked me 2 years ago, I'm like, I have no vision for this business. What is this vision thing that everybody always talks about? The vision of this is that we eat next week.
Listen, that's gonna be enough, right? Like, oh my goodness.
Yes, that's we grow into these things. It's okay if your vision is we eat next week. Yes, eating is good.
Gosh. Oh, okay. I had a question and now I just lost it with eating. But anyways, any topics that we haven't covered in this bit of time? I think, I don't know when we started, to be honest with you. I didn't properly look at a clock, but
oh, I wasn't looking.
Okay, but anything that we haven't talked about that you want to put out there, that you want to talk about topics, anything like that you kind of had a burning urge?
Hey, tell me about the vision. Tell me about the vision that you have for your business.
Oh, right.
Tell me about your bunnies. Tell me about your vision.
Right. Okay. So I'll try to be brief, but I have this terrible habit of very much digressing and getting off topic. So it's just kind of the way my brain thinks. I get distracted very easily. So much like your story, I started out a long time ago, and it was my grandma actually who taught me to knit. And then I forgot because I stopped using it. I stopped doing it. And I started out with acrylic yarn because that's what she had. That's what's around me. That's what was around me. And for the most part, that's still what is around primarily, besides the internet. And so life happened, life moves on. And in graduate school, I picked up knitting needles again because I needed to see progress. I needed to see some physical progress. I wanted to do something. I needed something. And then of course, you know, there's multiple times just kept picking up the needles, but it was always really acrylic yarn that I was using. And as I got older, I was a therapist, and I had a baby, I had a child, I wanted soft yarn. I wanted very soft, good yarn. I didn't want plastic yarn. And even the most, you know, the softest acrylics, they weren't real, and I had no story. There was nothing to my yarn. It was simply what I was at a box store. It had no meaning, it had no purpose. And of course, so I had rabbits since I was in 3rd grade, and never an Angora rabbit. And I decided we're going to get rabbits. And then of course we're going to learn how to shear them. Then we're going to learn how to spin, and it just goes from there. And so this leads me to being in a position at work where it is, I was in community mental health, basically. So you work with all sorts of different types of people. You see all sorts of different sorts of things. And, you know, really wanting to be there for my child. And then eventually I had 2 children. And now I have 2 stepchildren as well. So I have 4 children total. But really wanting more out of life and wanting purpose out of life. And so it starts with wanting better yarn, and it grows into this vision of, but there's so many other people who want this as well. There's so many other people who also want good yarn, but they want a life where they themselves too can feel purpose, can feel meaning. They can have a business that's theirs. And so what I would love to see is I would love to be able to help create the path and to write it out and to say, listen, here are some steps, here are some things, these are the things, and this is what I did to get to where I am. And so I would love to see people finding what matters to them in the fiber arts and doing it, and especially with Angora rabbits, especially. So long story short, really just more using fiber arts, to have a more authentic life. So that's all, nothing small really. It's just a little big.
I think it's huge. The idea that you want to creating a life that is real out of real things. And
yes.
I love that. That resonates so much.
Absolutely. Especially, absolutely. And I think, a lot of the videos or podcasts that have been on my channel recently, a lot of the members only videos, we discuss, there's a lot happening in the rabbit world. For example, it's like a broken rabbit world where we used to be able to communicate with each other, and we used to be able to, now I pressed the screen and lost you. Now let's see if I can, there we go. We, as rabbit raisers, as humans with rabbits, we used to be able to communicate civilly with each other. And we are in a difficult, strange spot right now in the rabbit world where there's a lot of difficulty because everyone is like combative, and especially on social media, and people are really struggling to find answers and to find truth. And so if they have a question about raising rabbits, for example, people are struggling to post the question and not become attacked, or to have answers that are helpful, which is truly what's happening in many places on social media. But that's one thing which we've been, just discussing is, let's get back to an unbroken rabbit community. Let's get back to a place where we can talk together, and we're not yelling at each other, or we're not arguing on social media or whatever it is, where it becomes a much more supportive place. Which is, like I said, that's another kind of another rabbit hole that I went down recently. But
I think that the whole world has kind of become that way, that the idea of how divided everything is. And I think everybody feels the stress of being cooped up during COVID, and it comes out in irritability online. And that kind of breaks my heart that that's, in the rabbit community, and we saw it with Ravelry and, in the knitting community. And I'm like, fiber people are some of legitimately the kindest, most wonderful human beings on the planet. I'm like, if you're willing to spend hours making something for another person, everything about your personality usually means that you are such a kind, wonderful human. And it says something about our world at large that even those people who are so wonderful and so kind and so generous are feeling the stress to where that's coming out as attacking each other in rabbit groups.
Right, like fluffy rabbit groups. But you have a good point.
Like, come on, go pet your rabbit.
Exactly. It'll be just fine, I promise. But yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And we think about it, and it's like, and that's the world our businesses exist in. And we exist in this world, and we have to navigate it. And we're not alone. There's others out there.
Thank you for bringing more joy into that world and trying to bring more love back into.
Thanks. I try.
Because that honestly, that's what we need is more people like you, bringing joy and love and everything back to the fiber world.
I hope so.
And reminding everybody. Yeah.
Right now, it kind of feels intolerable. Like, I'm just like, I don't even want to turn on social media, but I gotta upload a video. Like, this is ridiculous. But anyways, yes. So I don't know. That's what I've got for now. You know, just I don't know. Maybe we can solve the world's problems sometimes here. Like I don't really know, but solve some yarny communication problems or rabbit problems, or we'll just talk about business. That's probably a bit easier. So
I think, I honestly think that, you know what, as you talk about some of these things and you spread positivity out, it is going to filter out to the rest of the world. You're going to solve the world's problems through fluffy rabbits. Through fluffy rabbits.
Let's do it.
If everybody does it in their own sphere, the world is just better.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So tell us, where can we find you? Speaking of social, where can we positively find you on social?
Okay, so you can find my main business, Twice Sheared Sheep, at twiceshearedsheep.com. We have a Facebook page, Twice Sheared Sheep. We do not have a group because, again, trying to maintain my life, but we do have a knit club that we meet twice a week on Zoom, either Mondays or Wednesdays, whichever works great for you. That if you join our email list, our knit club, that there's a link there that you could come knit with me. Awesome. And we have a great time. And for my business trainings is over on my personal website, which is dawnprickett.com. And we have a beginner's very basic Facebook ads course that's up right now. And our larger, more in-depth Facebook ads course is currently closed, but it should be opening soon. So
awesome. And the Facebook trainings are actually your trainings, right?
They are my trainings, and they are specifically geared towards product-based businesses. Because like I said, when I was looking for Facebook ads training for all of my friends, for my fiber arts friends, you know, I'd send them to this guru or this guru or this guru, and they'd come back and they're like, Dawn, it doesn't work for me. They're not talking about products. They're talking about, you know, they're talking about selling their course, or they're talking about their blog, or they're talking about this information products and lead magnets. And I'm like, and they're like, what is a lead magnet? And I'm like, oh, honey, we're product-based business. You need to sell a product. Yeah. And so the training is specifically geared towards product-based businesses and towards maker businesses, because I never intended to be a coach, legitimately. I just want to run my business I always just wanted to run my business and do my thing. But like I said, it breaks my heart to see so many fiber businesses and so many maker businesses kind of on the constant treadmill of social media posting and then not getting any traction.
Absolutely.
Or to be on Etsy and to say, you know, you only get the sales that Etsy decides to drop in your lap. And, you know, we know that we need more than what somebody else chooses to give us. We want to have control over what we can do. And the best method that I have found to grow my business personally was through Facebook ads. And so that's what I decided to make a little course on. So that awesome. Hopefully other businesses will then be able to grow and support their families and eat.
Yes, that's absolutely awesome. So again, you have your YouTube channel as well? So I definitely recommend everyone.
I do, yes. Which is Dawn Prickett is the YouTube handle. And I haven't uploaded anything recently because I've been working on the big Facebook course, but soon.
Good. Awesome. Very good. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me and for chatting. And I hope everyone goes and checks out your course. I know that's what I'm going to be doing. I always love stuff like that. I love learning. I love finding out things that can help grow a business, especially when it is specifically geared towards a maker business. That's absolutely invaluable. So cool. Well, if you don't
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yes, you're welcome. And hopefully
it was so nice to meet you.
You as well. So that's all I've got though. So my screen is like, I've been on this thing all day, so it's like flashing at me now. So that's bad, very bad.
Oh.
But
yeah, and it tells me on my screen I've got Stephanie Hubert's network bandwidth is low, and it shrunk you smaller.
Yeah, we're falling apart. So anyway,
these are the things.
Yeah.
Running a business from home. Come on, here we go.
Do it. It's fine. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dawn, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye, Stephanie.